Well, I just want to welcome everyone here. I'm so glad that you made this a priority to be here. For those of you that are with me in person and those of you that are watching this in your workshops, thank you for taking this step. We're hoping that this is something that helps you grow and you feel invested into. As Sharon Schmidt said, that the reason why we're doing this entire thing is to care for you, those that are serving and helping shoulder the ministry, not just serving, actually taking a step of leadership. That's why we did this, so that we could do a better job. Because sometimes things happen, and it's not the vision, it's not the heart, it's just, we just didn't know. We grew so fast that we did not have a system in place to facilitate that on a leadership level. So, that's why we're doing this, and it's been in my heart to do for some time, and we're glad to actually get it going. Today, the module we're going to be talking about, this is Lead 101. We're going to be focusing in on communication. And communication is core to leadership. And when I say communication, I don't mean that you have to be the best public speaker. Because some people are effective communication one-on-one or written communication. But there has to be an ability to communicate. And so I want to open up with Ephesians 4, 6 through 16. You guys have heard me use this before. It says this: to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for building up of the body of Christ, until we all attain the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God, to mature manhood, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. So the first part of this verse is highlighting the reason why God gave leaders to the church, and there's different types of leaders. It goes through the fivefold ministry, is to equip the believers for ministry, not for pastors and paid staff to do ministry. It is the leaders of the church that are meant to help equip the believers to actually do the ministry. That tells us that every single one of us, all of us as Christians, are meant, part of our purpose is to help advance the kingdom of God, and part of that happens within the local church, that we are equipped to carry out the ministry, that each of us are unified and that we grow, and it talks about the advancement and the growth of the kingdom of God. So that is what we are going to do. That is what this process is. This is a leadership development process. It's an intentional plan, and we have several stages. We have the lead track, which is what this will be. This will cover the next 5 modules, where we cover the 5 core competencies that we look in for a leader across the entire ministry here at Red Church. Next, we're going to have the coaching track, which will help equip the coaches, and their job is to actually care and lead the leaders, to care, encourage, equip, or what you think about what a coach would do for the leaders. So it's their responsibility to care for the leaders. And then we're going to have a director track, and that's for those who actually are going to see a whole area. They're going to oversee an entire area of ministry. And eventually it's going to be more than that. You have staff pastor track, and then we'll have other things as well that's kind of in the future. Obviously, not everybody will go from a member to a leader to a coach to a director to a pastor. Not everyone's called to do that. The purpose of this is to try to help people grow to the level in which they're called and they're wired, the calling that God has on their life. And so we do these modules so we can help identify, help see if this person has the giftings to be able to take the next step. For example, if you are a leader, one of the core things that you look for in a member is that they have the ability to manage themselves. So some of the people on your team might be new to the faith, and some of the positions, they may not even be saved. There's obviously certain positions you can't be in unless you are saved. But if they're setting up or even doing parking or something along those lines, we don't always know exactly where they're at in their faith, but we look for certain things. There's spiritual things that we look for, but we also look for practical things. And the core competency for that is that they can manage themselves. Part of that is looking at time. If someone is constantly late, not like every now and then, because we all have issues, things pop up, you run out of gas, or the kid threw up on the last minute on your way out the door, or whatever it might be. But if there's a regular pattern of not being dependable, That's an automatic red flag that is probably someone you can't raise up in leadership because they've not learned to kind of manage their own lives in that way. And that's something that matters when you look for a leader. The leader's job is to equip, not just to do ministry, and that means spiritual and practical. I've talked before about the incarnational part of ministry. As a church, and even in our own lives, we are called to fully be spiritual and fully do a good job in the practical. That to think of the best strategies and the best ways and the most excellent ways of doing it, and yet at the same time be led by the Lord. What are you saying? Jesus was all God and all man, and that plays into our philosophy of ministry, incarnational ministry. So today we're going to be covering communication. To give you a kind of a quick overview, if you would put up on the screen our first slide there of the member to lead pastor graphic. So this is, you kind of see what this looks like. You see member there, you see leader, you see coach and director, staff pastor and lead pastor. This is really important. This does not represent value. What I mean by that, it is not where, oh, if you're higher up in the ranks, you're better. That's not what this is at all. It's a matter of levels. What are people wired to do? You need people in every level of this to really be successful anywhere, and especially even in ministry. And so it is our heart to find people and place them where they are the most gifted and the most called over a period of time. I know not all of right now, currently the way things are, it's not all looking that way, but eventually that's what we're going to get to. I'll give you an example of Nathan would self-identify that he is the most comfortable doing tasks. Nathan, my personal assistant, Nathan helps, he's worked in every area. Nathan Schmidt has worked all over the church, but he loves doing tasks. He loves, give me a list and let me get it done. He is most comfortable in member. And those bottom two, leader and member, a lot of it is focused towards getting tasks done, though the leadership does have people responsibilities. But then the coach is more people-focused, and then the director and staff pastor are more systems and strategies focused. Not everybody's focused, and not everyone's wired to just do tasks. Like if my life was simply doing tasks over and over and over again, I would die quickly. I would hate it. I'd absolutely hate it. And some people are wired to be people. They hate systems, they hate structures, but they love people. And then there are some people that tolerate people, but they love systems and they love strategies and structures. And they look at strategies and systems to help people, but they're better at the big picture than necessarily in the weeds, so to speak. So, the core competencies for a leader, this is what we see here. For a leader, the core competencies, one is a good communicator. That is the number one. If this isn't present, the person probably can't be an effective leader. And again, this does not necessarily mean that they have to be a good public speaker. In fact, we actually give tools. We'll get to further into the lead track, which is very, very helpful when it comes to being a good communicator. The next one is recruit. They have to have a heart and an ability to help draw people on their team. And the good news with this is that you can be taught how to do this, and we're going to help equip how you can actually do this. The next one is admin, and that's, for those of you like me, I don't like administrative type of things, although I recognize they're really important. At the leader level, it's very basic. It's not overly cumbersome. It helps, but it's a kind of a way that the leader knows what needs to be done and make sure that it gets done. And at the leader level, that's very manageable. For those of you that are free spirits or those of you that are more creative, it's very manageable on the leader level. Problem solving, the ability, what we have here is we have to believe, if you're a leader, and this is where we'll equip, you have to believe that there's a solution for every problem. If someone is always saying things like, oh, well, we just don't have enough people, or oh my goodness, we always have this problem and that problem, and they're not actually processing that there's a solution, then that's a problem. As a leader, you have to understand there is a solution to every problem. Jesus says he's going to build his church. He's going to build his church. So that means we have what we need, or he's going to give us what we need soon. But usually he gives us what we need as we are faithful and are good stewards of what we already have. All right, so we don't just wait for the problem to go away. That probably won't ever work. If you're a leader, we want to help equip you how to problem solve in your area. And then the last one there is an eye for excellence. And this one's really important. In our culture, excellence breeds credibility for your worldview. So if we sit there and go, oh, whether it be in kids, let me just give you examples. If we sit there and go, well, I'm leading kids, I can wait until the morning of and never look at my discussion guide. Well, you might be able to do that okay, but that's not excellent. And that's really not honoring the students and the parents that they're entrusting in your classes. If you're an usher or a greeter and you go, well, that's just good enough. No. The way we serve, we do so. How we serve reveals how we worship. We want to give God our best, our first fruits. We often talk about money that way, but no, our giftings, when we're serving God, I want to give you the best. And that's as a leader, we want to model that. There's grace in all of this because we don't always, even myself, it's not like I hit all of these every single time, but there's grace, but this is what we're looking for. And the core expectation is a willingness to engage our discipleship process. If someone is taking a step up in leadership, they're allowing us to speak into their life and helping them grow spiritually. Otherwise, we can't move forward. All right? So the next thing, I'm going to give you 10 communication responsibilities of a leader. This is what leaders are responsible for. And if in your area of ministry, for those of you that have been serving, you're probably going to see areas where your team has done well and some areas where the team has not done as well in the past. And maybe it's gone both ways. Maybe it's been good and it's also been bad. But these are the responsibilities. And if these are not communicated, then the team is going to struggle from time to time. I want to highlight that most conflict arises because differing expectations. Most conflict in relationships, in life, in families, on teams happen because person A has an expectation and it's different than person B's expectation. This happens all the time. I'll be working with my wife or Sharon or Pastor Adam on a team, and we'll be totally in different tracks because our expectations are different. We may have said the same thing, but we're meaning something different. So there's different ways to communicate expectations, and part of that's going to be a volunteer agreement, which we're going to get to in a second, so you actually know what that looks like. It helps get people on the same page. So put this in context of a process. Someone comes to church, and maybe it's the first time, or maybe they've been coming a while. They finally decide they're going to plug in. They go to the growth track, and they get plugged into a small group and want to get plugged into a dream team. They begin serving, and then you begin to, as a leader, you begin to identify that there's potential for more there. Now, again, there are some spiritual things you want to keep an eye on, and that's something that we'll go into more with ongoing equipping. But there's also some practical things that you want to be looking for. And so that's what you're looking for. And then once that's been identified, what will happen is they will fill out, we have a whole process, they'll fill out an application. It's a very simple application. And then once they are approved, they will start the lead track. So typically you'll have a conversation with your coach or with Sharon, her team grow, is going to oversee this whole process. And we sit there and go, you know what, I think this person has a lot of potential. So we'll sit there and go to, hey, Chris, we see potential in you as a leader. We'd really like you to consider going through the lead track. And he's like, yeah, thumbs up. I'm totally for that. Fills out the application. They have a conversation. And then he gets into the lead track. And as you go through the lead track, you get equipped to not only serve, but lead. So, a church attender, you go through the growth track. Then you join a team, which is where you should go through an orientation. And you get the volunteer agreement. Some of you did get that, some of you didn't, but that's the way it should go. Then you get a volunteer agreement. You're on the team, and then eventually some folks will go on to the lead track who has a heart to do so. All right. Types of leaders. I want to clarify this, because if you've been around, the term leader has meant different things. If you've heard the Connect leader or family ministries leader, what that has meant is, and what it often means in churches, is a leader kind of oversees everything. But here, what it means is that there's a leader over specific areas of ministry. Like when there's the Connect, you have a usher leader, you have a lead greeter, you have a lead parking leader, you You have a lead next steps, lead guest services, lead growth track, all right? And then each of them have a coach, and each of those coaches have a director, and that will be the connect director. Same thing with small groups. You have members in a group, you have a small group leader, you have a coach, you have small groups director, or the grow director. That's kind of how it sets up. All right, here's 10 communication responsibilities. Go ahead and write this down if you have it. I'm going to go through these fairly quickly because most of this isn't super in-depth. It's something that's informative for you to know. Number one, encourage them in their role in faith. As a leader, your job is to encourage them both to do their job well, but also in their faith. Number two, communicate specific responsibilities. Want to communicate what their actual role is and what they're doing, because you can't get upset with them if they're not doing something that you never asked them to do. Number three is communicate time commitments. The volunteer agreement will help with this. So when you guys later on in your activity, when you guys break out, you'll be able to look at what I'm talking about here and see what it looks like and see how it can be used so that you can get on the same page with your team members. Also, how to do the job and the role or task. How to do the job or the role or the task. How to do it. Not just what to do, but how do you actually do it. And that may be telling, it may be modeling and showing it, depending on what it is. It may be watching other people do it, depending on what you're training them to do. This next one is really important, the why. So you don't just tell them what you're doing, you tell them the why. So depending on how you're wired, if you are a detailed task person, what's really often going to be important for you is tell me what to do because I want to do it well. But if you tell that person the why, this is why we do it, but you don't tell them how, they're not going to be able to do their job well because, okay, I understand this is important, but I have no idea what I'm doing. But if you take a big picture person, someone who's kind of a visionary or someone who's kind of always thinking ahead, I need to know the concept, and you teach them the how, but you don't teach them the why, they're not going to care. They're going to get bored. You have to be able to explain the why, and often they are, there are some variations, but those big picture thinkers are often really strong potential leaders in some cases. So if a leader will often ask questions of why, because they want to know why this fits into the whole picture, because it helps them do a better job better. So you have to explain the why do we do it this way. What I mean by that is if you're a greeter, the reason why we do everything out there is our ultimate win is that when people come back, and the ultimate win is, the goal if you're a Connect is to get people to come back 3 weeks in a row. Why? Because when they come back 3 weeks in a row, there's an 80% chance that they will stay with the church. If they come 2 weeks and miss a week and then come back again, it starts all over again. We have no idea why that is, but it is. It's true. That's why we do everything we do. It's why we have the growth track. That's why we welcome them, because we want them to feel welcome so much so that they come back and stick, because we believe it's important to be a part of the local church. The why matters. Number 6 is who they report to. So if they have a problem, who do they go to? Number 7, the ultimate win and the team win. So for kids, it's when kids drag their parents back. That's the ultimate win. Connect, as I mentioned before, is that when people come back 3 weeks in a row. Number 8, responsibility is to celebrate team wins and personal wins. So this is salvations, when a church-wide win, when you highlight salvations. Like I'll share one with you right now. So on Sunday, we announced that there were 8 salvations in the past 4 weeks. Right? That's something that we should all celebrate, because if you served, you have a hand in that. If you greeted, if you ushered, if you cleaned the toilets, you had a hand. I would just hope that if you cleaned the toilets, you washed that hand, but you had a hand in bringing about the salvation. All right? But what's interesting is the Sunday we announced it, we had 6 more salvations that Sunday. So that's what I'm talking about. The reason why we do what we do is because people's lives are being changed for real. That's why we do what we do. And we have to remind people, because it's easy to forget. It's easy for us to get distracted in our stuff. You could celebrate when someone has done something well. Like, I just want to honor right now. I want to honor Stephen. He's just been excellent what he's been doing and this and that, and highlight specific examples of what that would look like. We would celebrate when someone takes a step up in leadership. We just want to honor so-and-so. They're taking the commitment to help lead this particular area. We just want to honor them. And we'll do this in a few different ways. We'll do this sometimes in Sunday huddles, like you guys get together in your huddles. Sometimes we'll do this in lights, because what happens is in Sunday huddles are mini meetings, and then light meetings are going to be ongoing equipping. So that will be a time when we do that. Other times we might honor people when you're apprenticing, when you're modeling it and showing it with other folks. All right, number 9, communication responsibility is follow up care. Follow up. So, this takes a few different ways. When someone's new on the team, what will happen is they will get a training guide. It's a very simple one page of how to actually do their job well. So some areas have had this and some areas have not had this, but this will help when someone first gets started, help them to know bare bones what we're looking for. And then after they do it for the first time, on the back of it, there's some coaching questions. They ask things like, well, how did I do? What did you notice? If you had any ideas or something along those lines. You'll see those in just a moment when you break out into the activities. So that will help be able to communicate so the person, they don't go 2 months doing it the wrong way and then they get corrected afterwards when they've been doing it the wrong way, because no one ever told them otherwise. And so I know that's happened. That's what happens when you don't have a real system. It's based on a person, and if someone's missing and that person's not there to do it, everything kind of caves in. Also, follow up every 3 months, 6 months, and 1 year. You follow up with individuals in the team to see how they're doing, like what's going on in their life. And if you're working on a team, obviously there are things that you're going to find out even before then, but this is an intentional way to kind of follow up with them and use your volunteer agreement to check in with them to kind of recalibrate if something needs to be recalibrated. And lastly, number 10 is tips to improve. How to actually improve in what they're doing. All right. There's 4 main tools that leaders will have, and they're not going to be overly complicated. We're going to have you see 3 of them in just a moment. But number 1, communication guides. And this communication guides is something that we use for small groups, for dream team short huddles on Sundays, and for larger huddles like light equipping. So, this is how this communication guide helps every team leader to do a better job in communication, these core aspects. By using the same concepts and the same terms, it helps people, if say you're in small groups, but you feel like you're called to kids, or you're in Connect and you feel called to honor, all of a sudden, if you go from one area to the next, the terms are the same, and the roles are the same. The skills might be different, but it helps people transfer as they kind of identify what they feel like the Lord's leading them or calling them to do. So it really helps clear things up. Volunteer agreement is where you sit down when they first serve and you talk about expectations. Management system, we're going to talk about that in future weeks about what this looks like in each area of ministry. And at the leader level, don't freak out, it's not overly complicated. And then training guides. These are very simple pieces of paper that each position should have so they know from the get-go how to do their job well.
Okay, so now it's time for activity 1. For the first part of this activity, you're going to break into groups of 2 or 3 and share your answer to this question. As a dream team or small group member, which of these areas were you not aware of? For part 2 of this activity, you will review the training guides, communication guide, and volunteer agreements together and share how you think these will help your team or small group.
All right, so we're going to move into our next section. This is on the whys and hows of a huddle. We're going to talk about team huddles as well as small group discussions. So we're going to move first into the why. Why do we huddle with our teams? Why do we have small group discussions? Well, we get this from Jesus. So Jesus in Matthew 16 used this strategy. Now, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? And they said, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. He said to them, but who do you say that I am? So in this passage, we actually are kind of seeing Jesus facilitating a small group discussion. He's with his disciples, and he's asking them, so what do you think about this? Who do you say that I am? Who do other people say that I am? He's giving them an opportunity to talk it out together, to learn from each other. And because in other passages we see where he teaches them, but in this passage we're seeing something really neat where he is actually drawing discovery out of them through good question asking. The next passage I want to draw your attention to is in the Great Commission. This is from Matthew 28, where Jesus gave us this command. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you, and behold, I'm with you always to the end of the age. We are called to make disciples. Just like in that first passage, we see Jesus talking with his disciples, teaching them, but also asking good questions. So he's called us to do the same, to make disciples. So that's the spiritual side of it. So the making of disciples is a spiritual component, but that leads us into our next point, that Jesus, or the Lord, also calls us to equip, to do some practical teaching with those that we're making into disciples. This is from Ephesians 4. And he gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds, and teachers to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, for building the body of Christ. So it's spiritual, but it's also practical. We're called to make disciples, but we're also called to equip them practically, to know what to do. What am I supposed to do? So these are some things that we see from Scripture. Additionally, huddles are very effective because they leverage both the successes and challenges, whatever may happen on your team, both successes and challenges, for the group to learn from those things from each other. So let's say on a Sunday morning, let's say you're on the greeting team and something goes wrong. Later, as you huddle together, you can say, okay, so what happened and what can we learn from that? And you can start to talk that through with your team, and they can learn from each other. Pastor Jace mentioned earlier some successes when we see people coming back and giving their hearts to Jesus. Those are successes that we can learn from with each other in our huddle. So we can learn together, both by celebrating successes and by sort of workshopping when things do go wrong. And finally, the huddle method, the small group discussion method, is versatile. So we can use that on a dream team. We can ask questions in our huddles. We can also use that in a small group when we're following a small group discussion guide or curriculum. So it's a tool. Those communication guides that you saw are a tool that can be used whether you're on a team or in a small group. So those are things I know you'll get a chance to look at more in depth later, but you do have those there for you. So I'm going to move on to what do I do in a team huddle or a small group discussion. There's 5 C's. So we'll start with the first one, connect. So connect is the first C. This is a simple welcome, and if it's in a longer huddle or in a small group discussion, this is the time that you want to take a chance to do some icebreaker questions, things to kind of get things going, get people talking and connecting. So that's how you get things started with the connect. Number 1 is connect. Number 2, celebrate. Pastor Jace mentioned this before. We want to celebrate things that are happening in the church-wide wins. We mentioned the 6 salvations. We want to celebrate things that are going on our team, wins that we see on our team, or celebrate an individual on our team. Things that this is a great opportunity to do a shout out of somebody that you saw doing something really well. And not only does that minister to them and make them feel good and affirm them, but it also helps the team to see, okay, that's what a good job looks like. It helps to kind of give a real life example. So celebrating. So the next one is communicate. So this is where you're going to spend the bulk of your time, whether you're a team leader that is doing a huddle with a team, or you're a small group leader who is facilitating a small group discussion. So when you're meeting with your team, huddling with your team, you're going to be sharpening a specific skill usually with your team. So you're going to take time surrounding that specific skill to facilitate that. It's usually going to be a leadership competency, and it's designed to help them grow and learn and be inspired. If you're a small group leader who is facilitating a small group discussion, you're going to be spending this communicate time facilitating your group discussion, either based on the sermon series, if you're in a sermon series group and that's the group that you're leading, that discussion guide that goes along with that, or using the curriculum that your group is following, such as Freedom Group or Foundations. They come with the discussion guides, and so you're going to use that portion of the communicate to follow that curriculum. Right? And number 4 is convey. This is an opportunity to share announcements, things that are going on. Right now, things like trunk or treat or other things that are going on that you want your team to be aware of, upcoming events and reminders. That's a good place for announcements, that number 4, convey. And finally, number 5 is care. This is an opportunity to spend time praying as a team or as a group. And if you're in a longer huddle or you're in a small group discussion time, this is a time where maybe even your group takes prayer requests. I know a lot of our small groups do that. Take time praying at the end for specific prayer requests. So this is an opportunity to care for one another on the team. So we're going to go now I just wanted to show you this sort of table on the next slide. So this is sort of summarizing what I've just talked about. So you can kind of see the short huddle is going to be, on a Sunday morning, it's going to be 5 to 7 minutes usually. Some teams may be longer, but so you're going to have it's going to be short there. And then a longer huddle is like what we talked about with the light meeting. When you're huddling up with your team to do an equipping, that time span is going to be 60 to 120 minutes. So it's going to be a longer time. And then small group discussions, as you know, if you've been in a small group, you're going to find that to be between 60 and 90 minutes. You can kind of see, though, this is a uniform way to make sure that we're doing all of the things, all the 5 C's, whether I'm in a small group, whether I'm huddling with my team. So it kind of unifies everybody, so we're not all doing different things, but we have a system to make sure that we're hitting all of those good C's that we talked about. So lastly, just wanted to go over when and for how long do we huddle. We kind of talked about some of those. So it will vary depending on your team, but for most teams, you're going to do that short huddle once a week on Sundays. You've all been a part of that. If you're on a dream team, you do that huddle with your team leader. A long huddle once a month. We talked about the light meeting. The only exception here is kids, youth, and small groups, because if you think about it, your kids' lesson as the small group leader for one of the kids' classes, that's going to be longer. You're huddling with your team in that scenario. So you're the leader and they're the members in that scenario. Same thing with our youth. They're the members and the small group leader over them is the leader. And the same thing, of course, with our adult small groups. So that's going to be the only exception. They're going to do a long huddle once a week because usually those groups meet weekly. All right, so again, this is all designed to just streamline. Those communication guides are just designed to streamline things so that you know exactly what to do. You're not out here making it up or kind of just, shooting in the dark. This is giving you a clear way to huddle with your team, make sure they're informed, your team is healthy, your group is healthy. So there you have it.
It's time for activity 2. For part 1 of this activity, share your favorite icebreaker question with your group. For part 2 of this activity, share with your group one thing you can celebrate about the church, your team, or an individual on your team or in your small group.
So we are going to end Lead 101 as we talk about communication. We're going to talk about unhealthy communication, because to know what healthy communication is, you also have to be able to recognize unhealthy communication so you know how to deal with it. Because if you're in leadership to any level, and not even in leadership, in life, you're going to see and experience unhealthy communication. And as a leader, then the question is, what do you do with it? All right? You have to recognize it, but then what do you deal with it? And you have to understand what the Bible says about these things as well. So we're going to talk about biblical principles, and I'll also give you some rules of thumbs or practical advice so that you have a better understanding of how to handle things. I'll just tell you that no matter how much equipping you get, there's always going to be situations that you cannot prepare for. It just happens. But hopefully through training, both onboarding, what we're doing now, like kind of get you started, and ongoing equipping, you'll be better equipped to be able to deal with it. But there's just situations like COVID-19 happens, nobody's prepared for all the things that people are going to say during that time. No one's prepared to go over that. When you have very unique situations come up, often you're not prepared. So, the first section we're going to talk about is church discipline and reconciliation. And the reason why this is lumped together is because it comes from the same verse, which tells us how do we actually approach reconciliation in a biblical way, and also it gives you a map from a church perspective, how do you deal with church discipline if it ever comes up. Matthew 18:15. If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. So you have to understand, when it talks about tax collector, it is highlighting the Roman Empire is in control, and a tax collector was often someone who was Jewish who was working for the Romans, so they were essentially a traitor. They were gaining wealth off the backs of their own people. Some of you guys may have seen the show The Chosen, and you see Matthew and how he was not liked, and tax collectors were considered very unlikable, and therefore this is something that's highlighting you treat them as if they are a tax collector, meaning you don't have anything to do with them after you've gone through this process. So it's a pathway on how to deal with an offense, how to lead to reconciliation, and also how to deal with it within the local church. So the principle here is it's really important. We are not given the option to leave a church simply out of an offense unless we've actually tried to work through it. But in our culture, that's often not what happens. Often people get upset and they just disappear and you don't even know about it until afterwards. Or they get upset and they try to get other people riled up, and it's never really dealt with in a biblical way. So you have to understand, if you don't know the healthy way to handle it, then you don't know if someone's dragging you into an unhealthy conversation. So, we aren't called to leave a church because of an offense. I had a friend recently who I love, who's been in church most of his life, has not been going to this church, not been going to any church. He's been looking around and shopping online, but he will not go to his church. And his wife goes, but he will not go. And I said, look, I love you. And this is a person who's ministered to me in multiple times, in multiple ways. I said, you're upset, and have you gone to them? No. Well, you cannot go somewhere else unless you've at least tried to reconcile. And to his credit, he received it, and he set up an appointment to meet with them to talk about what was going on. So, also, if someone is in sin, this is something that you go to. If they sinned against you, you go to them. But if they will not be reconciled, there's a process here. You go to them. If they won't hear you, you go again with someone else. And if they still won't listen, you go to the leaders. And then if they still won't listen, then you kind of have nothing to do with them. Now, what that means is you don't go directly to leadership before you've tried to deal with them. Now, if they're causing problems with other people, it might be a team issue, and therefore you might have to handle it in a different way. But if someone's offended you, you don't in-round them. And I'd say this principle applies in your jobs and other places too. How many have ever been in-rounded? Nobody likes that. All right? That's not a healthy way to deal with it. So you go to them. And when you deal with things like this, there's usually 2 extremes. Either you have a church, and maybe some of you have experienced this, where there's this like offense, and they like excommunicate and punish people like left and right. Like oh my goodness, you had a Bud Light, like 3/4 of a Bud Light last night. You are done. You are going to hell in a handbasket. You are not a Christian. Pagan, pagan, pagan. Go. Get out of here. We rebuke you. And so some churches are wired in a way where they just like critique and publicly humiliate people very easily. So that's one extreme. We don't want to be that way. I will say this whole Matthew process, we've only ever done once as a church. In our 8 years, we've only ever had to do it once. And that was a situation where we gave it a 2-year process to try to restore the guy. And he still wouldn't go for it. So this was actually with a lot of grace and patience before we really had to say, look, he was not only cheating on his wife, he was egregiously cheating on his wife, and he came to the point where he said, I'm not willing to work through it, I'm going to do what I want to do. And at that point, it was kind of, writing was on the wall. So we had to, at that point, we didn't have to go before the whole church because most of the people didn't know him, but we did have to go before the leaders because the leaders of the church did know him. If he would have been a public person, we may had to, in the public situation if it was a situation. But even that, we only want to have to do that if we have to. We don't want to, but say we had, and I'm not going to use a real pastor that we have, but say we have an assistant pastor who stole money from the church and was rebellious or something like that. Well, you kind of have to deal with that because people know him and they might know the situation and he's well known amongst the church. But if it's like maybe one of the coaches that only people in the Connect team know, you might only have to deal with it in the Connect team. The point is not to embarrass the person. The point is to try to heal and protect the sheep. Do you understand? That's the purpose of this. The other part of this is that the only way, Paul says later on, that the hope that you correct them is that they would be humbled and come back in repentance, that you do this with the hope that they would be repentant and come back and you could restore them. And the gentleman that we had to kind of dismiss, we told him, there's always a path back. But you can't go to someone in the church. You have to go to the elders. If you go to the elders, there's a path back. We would love to restore you and bring you back. But you can't wiggle your way in. You have to come to us because that shows, that's what highlights come to leadership to do that. So there's one extreme. The other extreme, though, is not willing to have tough conversations. Timothy Keller highlights in Proverbs, in his commentary in Proverbs, that the reason why people don't want to have tough commitments, to have tough conversations, isn't because they love the person too much, they love themselves too much. They don't like tough conversations. They don't want the person to not like them. They don't want to be inconvenienced to have an uncomfortable conversation. But how many know Jesus had tough conversations? And by tough, I don't mean that you just have to be a jerk about it. You have the right motives. Your heart should be to help restore and correct the person, not, you screwed up and I'm better than you. That's not, the heart matters. Your intent matters. But it's important that we have tough conversations. If you're leading, there's going to be somebody, there's people in my life that even I lead, that sometimes you have to have tough conversations. The problem is, some of them I know will listen, and some I know will not listen. When I preach on a hot topic message or subject, every single time, when I speak on something that's a hot topic, if a person's struggling with that, it often brings up conflict. What I mean by that is, say I'm talking about sexual sin. That often brings up major issues. There's a lot of people with sexual sin. We're a grace-based place, but we still have to identify what's right and what's wrong, but how we respond reveals something. Like when we talked about, one Sunday we had a guest speaker talk about pornography, and one guy flipped his lid because how dare you talk about, it wasn't like, hey, this is an issue that I've struggled with, would you help me with this? It's like, how dare you say that pornography is sin? There's a difference there. Someone's like, look, I know this is probably not right, but I don't know how to get out of it. It's different than, forget you, there's nothing wrong with this is healthy. That's a problem. And then how dare you even talk about it? That's a problem. Even when I talk, it doesn't matter if it's greed, people want to justify, pride. Most people are like, you know what, that really spoke to me. I realized I was a lot more prideful. That at least shows a sensitive heart to recognize. There's a particular person in one of the services where it didn't seem to have the same response. He like in the middle of pride, he's like digging on his chair and like folding his arms, looking at me like this, like really like angry with me because I'm talking about pride. And I'm like, that's pride. So some people are open and some people are not. And when you preach or teach or correct, sometimes people respond well and some people don't. That's important as you lead to be able to identify. That's a red flag. If you can't correct someone, if they're not open, that's a red flag. It's probably not someone that you're going to be able to raise up because they're not responsive to correction. Again, and even though this isn't the purpose of this, the church has authority to be able to handle these situations. But for this purposes, we're focusing primarily on how do we bring about reconciliation. If someone has a problem with someone in the church, you have to help lead them to seek reconciliation and not pot shot them from a distance and not avoidant and not tearing them down from a distance. Sometimes not even from a distance, sometimes up close. So you have to recognize biblical principles, because if you hear someone have an issue with someone else and you're not leading them, what you don't do is you hear that, Emily has a problem with Mary, and so Emily's coming to me about Mary, and then I go to Mary and go, look, you really need to talk to Emily because she has a problem with you. That's not how you deal with it. Sometimes people will do that to one of our leaders, go, someone has an issue with you, you need to go to them. It says here that if you have an offense, you go to them. So it is upon Emily to go to Mary. She's the one that has the issue. It may very well be that Mary upset Emily, and she may not even know that she upset Emily. It's upon Emily to go to Mary. Now, if Mary somehow gets the idea because Emily's passive-aggressive or aggressive, of course we're pretending because we know Emily's like sweet and knows that she's not like that. But if somehow Mary picks it up, then maybe she does seek that out to try to reconcile, but that's also dependent on Emily's heart being right. All right? How do we deal with offense? That's a really important reconciliation. Next is, though, dealing with troublemakers. So Matthew, kind of as a sense, it's a longer process because there seems to be kind of a hope for reconciliation. Because oftentimes you say, look, this really upset me, it frustrated me, and the person may sit there and go, I'm so sorry, I didn't really mean that at all. And then you can have a really good friendship. How many know that your deepest connections, you've had those conversations? If you've been married or had a friendship for any period of time, you get on each other's nerves, you get offended, you get ticked off. Anybody know this? All right? That actually brings about depth. If you keep leaving when if you're offended, you will never have any deep relationships and wonder why you're lonely and wonder why no one ever invests in you. You have to help your teams develop deep relationships and not just jet or get ticked off or become distant because they weren't willing to reconcile something. Now, the next case is that sometimes you have to recognize what needs to be reconciled and what doesn't. Because if you get offended the Bible says don't be easily offended. So if you are constantly getting offended and you keep going to everybody that offends you over and over again, that's probably going to take a lot of your time. So it may be you need to help lead that person to reconciliation, or it may be that you might have to coach that person or lead that person how to forgive and not always hold an offense to someone. All right? And that's a case-by-case situation. This next one, though, is dealing with troublemakers. It's similar to Matthew 18, but it's actually more direct. It says this, but avoid foolish controversies, genealogies, dissensions, and quarrels about the law. They are unprofitable and worthless. As for a person who stirs up division after warning them once and then twice, have nothing more to do with them, knowing that such a person is warped and sinful and is self-condemned. This is a person that's causing problems. So this is a person that doesn't seem to, and here the context is that it could be a theological problem, but stirs up problems could imply a lot of different problems. This is a lot quicker response than Matthew 18. You warn them once, you warn them twice, and then it's done. This is a person that there doesn't seem to be any way. They are causing problems, and the reason why you deal with something like this is that person is likely going to harm other people. And as a leader, oftentimes the Bible highlights a shepherd, you want to care for the sheep. And a person who stirs up problems over foolish things. So I'll be honest, sometimes I've let this go on a little too long, where I've seen a situation and I didn't deal with it soon enough, and it actually ended up having impacts on other people. And so this is where, you can fail on one of two sides. You can fail on taking it too long, or you can fail on reacting too quickly. Now, my natural tendency is to try to, if I'm going to fail, I'd rather fail on the side of grace, giving a little bit more grace, but sometimes you have to act quickly, especially if it's harming other people. We had a situation where we had one person who was causing so much problems, nobody wanted to be on the team. They're always complaining, we didn't know about it, we didn't know what was going on, and nobody wanted to be on the team because it was creating a cancer, and that's something that other leaders should have dealt with, or at least let us know, because we didn't have any idea what was going on. But if a person on a team is toxic, what will happen is it will kill the rest of your team. It will change the culture of your small group. Now, in a small group, sometimes you're going to have interesting people. And sometimes people they don't even know that they're not even doing it on purpose. They're just kind of abrasive or something. And you want to be a place of grace as much as you can. And you hope you, in your group you can kind of help have grace for that person. But there comes a time, and there have been situations on a team or a group where you have to warn them once and say, look, this can't happen again. Warn them again, and then you have nothing to do with them. This is someone who didn't just make a mistake. It's someone who's stirring up problems and division. So it's not someone screwed up. It's not someone is a little bit over the top or abrasive. It's someone who's stirring up other people. So it's not that they're screwing up. They're actually trying to get other people to do stuff, or they're actually impacting other people. Toxic people often attack other people. Toxic people often protect other toxic people because they want other people to be around them that are like them. So, Titus, if you're on a team and there's someone causing problems, fortunately, when this is all set up, you can talk to your coach, but warn them once, warn them twice, and then have nothing to do with them. You may have to deal with them if they're on a team. They may not need to be on the team going forward. Next one is honoring elders, honoring leaders. This would be pastors, overseers. I think the principle can apply to a lot of forms of leadership. But 1 Timothy 5:19, do not admit a charge against an elder except on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses, not 2 or 3 gossips, but 2 or 3 witnessed one particular situation, not multiple people having a conversation. As for those who persist in sin, rebuke them in the presence of all, so that the rest may stand in fear. So if this is something that someone's doing, if they persist in this, that it's something you may need to highlight. I've had a situation where someone was openly in front of other people criticizing Pastor Adam. I sit there and said, look, you can't do this anymore. To their credit, they adjusted, but if they had kept on doing that in front of other people, and they didn't care, and they weren't going to change that, I would have had to say it in front of the whole group, guys, this is not allowable. This is not healthy. This is not okay. It's not respectful. It's not honoring. Luckily, I didn't have to do that, but I would have had to if the person had not been repentant and humble enough to admit it. Not to entertain gossip or complaints about a leader unless there's multiple witnesses, not gossipers, not people with just an opinion. You don't even listen to it. You don't admit a charge. Think about this for a second. People lied about Jesus in groups and in court. So if people will lie about Jesus, they'll lie about every single other leader in our lives, especially spiritual leaders. Because the enemy wants to undermine spiritual leaders in our lives. Not just spiritual leaders, but any form of leader in our life, but especially spiritual leaders. He wants to distort it. He wants to minimize. He wants to, because then we'll start to do our thing. Pride will seep in. All of a sudden, it will create discord in our own heart, and eventually it could ruin the whole relationship altogether. The enemy's plan is to bring about discord in all spiritual relationships, especially those with leaders. This is not because leaders are imperfect. Far from it, actually. But how we honor leaders is a direct reflection of how we actually honor God. How often do we complain about our lives? How often do we criticize what's going on in our life? And what it really is, God, I don't trust you. God, you're not good enough. God, you're not a good God. We may not actually say that, though we might. But that's really what we're saying. My life stinks. well, why would this be? And why would that? I'm sick of this and I'm sick of that. What we're saying is, God, I don't like the life you've given me. I don't trust you in what's going on. I'm not looking to you that you might be doing something in this situation. How we treat leaders reflects how we treat God, how we're honoring God. Unhealthy communication includes gossip. Don't be a part of gossip. Listen to these verses. This is important. Proverbs 20:19. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets. Therefore, do not associate with a simple babbler. Meaning, if there is someone who you keep hearing complaining and talking about people, have nothing to do with them. Because you know what will happen? Eventually, it's like a disease. It will infect you. Early on in our church, we had someone who did not get their way. They were I'm not sure if they were a believer or not, but if they were a very immature believer who thought they were a mature believer. And they did not get their way in something that was very, very petty. So they had a very big problem, and then everyone tried to kind of work with them because everyone loved them, but everyone eventually kind of distanced themselves because it was going nowhere and it was toxic. One couple kept that relationship, and eventually it got toxic with them and it spread like a disease. That's what will happen. Who you give ear to will infect your heart. Bottom line, who you give ear to will infect your heart. Psalm 101:5. Whoever slanders his neighbor secretly, I will destroy. This is God. Whoever has a haughty look and an arrogant heart, I will not endure. I'm not going to put up with it, is what God is saying. Don't even associate with someone who's spreading junk, who's gossiping, who's slandering, who always has like an inside. Or sometimes it's something like this, like I saw this and I know there's something more going on here. Let me just tell you the ways. And sometimes it's like, they said this, but I know what they really meant. Or it's like, hey, I've been here, I've done this is what it should have been, and the reason why they won't is because X, Y, Z. It's gossip, it's slander. Don't give ear to it, because it will infect you. And that will eventually impact, the Bible says there's life and death in the tongue. That's real. Not just how you impact them, but you reap what you sow. It will boomerang, and as you gossip and listen to gossip and slander, it will infect your heart. Next one, toxic versus healthy communication, is choose joy, not complaining. Choose joy, not complaining. Philippians 2:14, do all things without grumbling or questioning. 1 Thessalonians 5:18, give thanks in all circumstances. Everyone say all. If you're listening right now and you're watching, say all. All circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. See, this is really important. Now, think about this for a team. As a leader, you want to cultivate this and you want to model this in your team, and you also want to have a lookout in your team. Let me give you an example. If someone is in Connect and the whole purpose of Connect is to be outward focused, to love on the people coming in, and that person is always like, oh, woe is me, my day's awful, there's all this stuff going on, and then what ends up happening, the entire team focuses on that person, nobody's focusing on the guests. My day is bad, this is what's going on. Now there are times, obviously, we all have challenging times when we need to talk to someone, but as we're serving, that is our opportunity to be outward focused. I'll just share with this. This happened this past week. I found out that one of my close relatives passed away suddenly, unexpected. As you guys know, I've had a lot of death in my life recently. And I wasn't planning to preaching this week. I could have very easily come in here and just been like, whoa, this stinks to be here. Oh, this is awful. You guys don't know. I'm not going to smile at you. Let me tell you what I'm going through. Now, there's a time for that, because there's a time that you need to be able to have those conversations. But when I'm here, my heart and my goal is to invest in those coming in. If you are leading a small group, if you're sitting there and kids, and you're wrapped up in the week ahead, and I understand sometimes it's difficult, because we understand life happens. But that's one of the ways that we create spiritual warfare, is that we are like, God, no matter what has gone on, I'm going to worship you, and I'm going to invest in love in these kids. Lord, I'm gonna love every one of those people that are coming in today. I'm gonna love, as I worship, I might not even feel like worshiping, but I'm gonna lead these people in worship because I want them to know that no matter what they go through, they can look to God. We need to choose joy, and that's a spiritual discipline. Choose joy doesn't mean we always feel joy. But it says, do all things without grumbling or questioning. What ends up happening is we are so self-involved, so narcissistic, that we want everyone to focus in on us, and we don't even realize it. Again, we understand that we all go through things, and we need other people to share. But sometimes we want everyone to focus on us a little too much, and it's narcissistic. What this means is this. Write this down. We are to be, as a leader, a thermostat, not a thermometer. If you're a leader and you hear someone complaining, if you're out, I'm using Connect a lot because it's one that I think all of you at least have some familiarity with because you guys have come in and out a little bit, whereas if I use other examples, maybe you don't know that area of ministry as much. But like, if you hear a conversation in Connect and they're like, man, I went to the DMV and it was awful and this lady just ticked me off and it's complaining. You don't go in there and jump in and have the same conversation. You're a thermostat. You determine the temperature. You don't adjust to it. Someone has a bad attitude, say, you know what? I'm so grateful for such and such. If you're the leader, you might have to have a conversation and say, hey, look, I know you've had a rough week. Can we have this conversation afterwards? Right now, I know it's tough. I know it's tough, but can we try to choose joy and focus on the people? And if it's too much, I understand. Let me help you out. Let's give you a break for something if it's a big deal. But it's a spiritual discipline to choose joy, not complaining. Be a thermostat. Set the temperature. Help everyone adjust to your temperature. You don't adjust to the culture. It's the same with gossip. If you have a group of people talking about someone, you go in and change the conversation. Sometimes it's easy as just changing the subject. Sometimes people won't let it go and say, guys, this is probably not a good conversation. And if they still persist, then you might have to be more direct. Greeting, serving, worshiping is to be others-focused. That's called to choose joy. Don't come in and choose joy like, oh, woe is me. Oh, I'm awful. It's awful. Sometimes it's a matter of faith. I'll just tell you, I'll be honest. Sometimes when I go to preach, I don't feel preachy. I don't feel joyful sometimes. But it's an act of faith. Why? Because it's spiritual warfare to speak the truth, even if I don't feel it. So how do you respond when an issue arises? Because some things need to be discussed, right? Gossip is not all conversations about other people. So sometimes people fall into this trap where they see something's unhealthy, but they think anything is gossip. But some conversations need to happen. Like, for example, let's just say that somebody wants to be a leader in kids, but they went to jail for beating a kid. Well, how many know that's a conversation that needs to be had, right? You do so in a gracious way. You don't assume that the person is still that way. You do it in a redemptive way. But that's a conversation you still have to have. Amen? You have to have that conversation. Let me give you some guardrails. You don't go to people about the problem who cannot fix the problem. When there's a problem, you don't go to someone who cannot fix the problem to talk about it. All right? Because that's how gossip and slander starts. You might not be that way. You might really be trying to figure it out, but that person might take that and run with it. Always do it from a place of grace and redemption, if possible. Even when there have been people who have been even hurtful to me personally, and it has to be addressed, I still want to do it in a redemptive way, just like if my kids upset me. It may need to be dealt with, but I want a way that is redemptive so that if their heart is right, it can be redeemed. If their heart's not right, then we have to go a different direction. So, if an issue comes up, like you see a problem, like let's just say that maybe there's another leader, and let's just say, Ben finds something about Tyler, and that Tyler is he's addicted to gaming, and it's so much so that he's not showing up for his job. I have no idea if he even games. I'm not even sure if that works or not. And that he's not showing up, and his team are being neglected. So he has to talk about it. He has to deal with it somehow. You never go down, meaning you don't go down to your team. You don't go sideways to another leader. You go up. Always go up, so you go to your coach. In the beginning, you might not have a coach. You go to whoever the direct leader is. You never go down. You never go sideways or peer. You go up. Otherwise, you're going to be spreading gossip and slander because that person is probably not going to be able to give you input. I don't care if it's going on your team. I don't care if it's your BFF friend that goes to the church. You don't go sideways on that because that's the fastest way to make it a bigger problem. If a leadership situation arises, sometimes we have to talk about it. Of course, when we talk about it from a church perspective, it's always from a place of grace because we've all made mistakes. It comes down to having trustful leadership. We've all made mistakes like, okay, we know that there's this situation going on in the church. How do we help, or do we let it sit for a while or not? Now, if there is a major accusation, and we're almost done here, how do you respond? If there's a major accusation, how do you respond? Because you're supposed to, the Bible says to care for the weak, but it also says to honor leadership. And it also says to love covers a multitude of sins. So how do you deal with this? Well, largely it depends on what it is, but love covers a multitude of sins means that not everything has to be dealt with because love can overlook a lot of things. But let's just say this is a major, significant accusation. How do you deal with it? And this is just having witnessed this firsthand. We already know that in the book of Esther, how leaders overuse their impact and they can harm other people. But we also know in Scripture how people can make accusations that aren't true. Joseph was falsely accused. He was falsely accused of assault when it was the woman who wanted him. And I've seen these play out on both sides. Behind the scenes, it was one of the things of growing up in ministry, I've seen them play out both sides, sometimes handled well and sometimes not handled well on both sides. So how do you deal with it? First of all, if someone comes to you, you don't go to someone else unless you're going up and say, look, I need to deal with this. And if it's dealing with a high up level, then you go up high. At that level, you might need to go, maybe to one of the elders or something like that, if it's depending on what it is. Let's just say you find out that your coach, the person that you report to, is there was an issue and it was an accusation against this person. Well, you would go directly to that person and say, look, I just want to know what's going on, and if they blow you off or forget about that. We had this happen where someone was accused of something that was not rated R, but was totally inappropriate from a leadership perspective. And I think I've shared this in the past. So how do you respond to that? First of all, if you hear that, know who to go to. You don't go down, you don't go peer, you go up. You deal with it this way. You assume that both are innocent. What I mean by that is if someone comes to you and says, someone did this to me, you give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm talking about high level. They said something about something significant. Give them the benefit of the doubt, but you also give the person they're accusing the benefit of the doubt because you don't know. I've been in both situations. You give them both the benefit of the doubt, and you take it to the appropriate authorities in that situation. All right? And then as the church gets involved, then they can take it from there. And we have a whole, from how the church works out, we have our eldership, but we're part of a network of churches that would help, if it was a major issue, would be able to help us navigate those problems. All right? So what you do is your heart disposition is to give both the benefit of the doubt. So in this situation, it came to me. Actually, it may have came to Pastor Adam, and I was made aware of it, that this person was accused of something. And they're like, people were a bit freaking out, like, we just need to take this person out. And I go, no, okay. Let's assume that it's true, but also let's assume that he's innocent. Again, it wasn't rated R, it was rated PG-13, but still inappropriate, very inappropriate. I assume that they're both telling the truth. We sat down, talked about it, found out what really happened from both of them. We had a really good, healthy plan to help that person reintegrate and apologize and repent and move on from that particular situation. But if you ever hear of that, you have to give both the benefit of the doubt. And again, you don't go sideways, you don't go down, you go up. All right, toxic behavior. Gossip, anger, lashing out, act with grace, but act quickly. Do not let that linger in your team. It will kill your team. It will seep into the rest of your team. The next one is avoid triangulation. Triangulation is kind of the similar example where I gave earlier, where Emily won't go to Mary, but she goes to me, and then I go to Mary. That's triangulation. You might see this in your own family, where one parent won't actually have the conversation with the other parent, so they go through the child. This is not healthy. You do not let that happen. If you're a child, you do not let your parents do that, and if you are a parent, do not do that to your kids. It's triangulation. It's very unhealthy. It's very traumatic as time goes on. You have to try to get Emily to go to Mary, not passive-aggressively go through you to Mary. Go to Mary through you, all right? And lastly, don't get trapped into, I'll tell you, but you have to promise to never tell anyone. You never make that promise. Someone goes, if there's something going on, they say, I want to tell you, but you can't tell anybody. No, what you say is, look, I can't make that promise. If you tell me, you have to trust me that I'll do the right thing with this information. Because it may be something that needs to be shared to the right person for that person. Even in counseling, there's certain responsibilities. Like you can't, in counseling, if you think that that person's going to be a harm to themselves or others, or if there's been a kid that's hurt, or for legal reasons, for court reasons, sometimes you actually have to say something. Same thing in leadership. Sometimes something needs to be said, and so you never get trapped into that. All right. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a role play. And this is the last thing that we're going to do before we give you the next one, what we're going to do this week. So we're going to do a role play. So we're going to have some people come up here to go through some illustrations or examples of how to deal with difficult problems. Here we go. If you guys give us go ahead and get in position.
Let's get ready for activity 3. For this activity, we will view a series of role play scenarios that illustrate how to deal with communication issues that may arise on your dream team or in your small group. We will cover the issues of gossip, complaining, dealing with offense, and dominating personalities.
Okay, so we're going to do some examples, and some of this will be in a small group setting, some of it will be in a dream team setting. All right, so we're going to let them jump in anytime they want, and their illustration may be the wrong thing or it may be the right thing. We don't really know, and none of us really know how this is going to go, but it'll be fun. All right, so the first thing what we're going to do is go into an example of gossip, and Sharon, you're the discussion leader. Go for it.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to small group discussion tonight. We're going to get into our lesson, and first...
Hey, Sharon, I don't mean to interrupt you, but guys, I'm not really a conspiracy guy, but did you guys watch the debates? Yeah. And I just think, I really feel the Lord leading me this way. I'm sorry, I don't mean to really, but I really feel the Lord is that we're supposed to talk about this. And I'm not a, hold on, I'm not a conspiracy person, but in this situation, I saw an article where people who wear purple polka dots are really a part of the one world order.
Let her lead the group.
Wait, no. This is a real thing. I had a dream about this. People with purple polka dots are the Antichrist. Gotcha. And wait. I'll say this, one last thing, and then I'll be done. One last thing. I really like this person, and I'm not saying that Pastor Adam's the Antichrist, but that beard. I'm just saying that beard and the polka and his bald head.
So I think Pastor makes some good points, but Sharon, you were getting ready to start the discussion. I was actually excited for today's lesson.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. We can pray at the end for any prayer requests that are mentioned. But let's get back into
my heart. I don't think I can listen because I'm really concerned about Pastor Adam. I think our whole church is at stake.
Well,
Did you see the tattoo?
We all love Pastor Adam, and we're a group of people that love one
another. Great guy.
Yeah, great guy, right?
Absolutely.
So we're going to go ahead with our discussion, and I hope you can still join us. We want you to join us. We're glad you're here. So we're glad you're.
Well,
And Sharon's a great person, too. If you have a concern about Pastor Adam, you could escalate it to her all day. I know she'll be able to take
do
care
you
of
wear
you on that.
purple polka dotted socks?
Not usually.
Okay, we'll talk. Okay, so in that situation, they're trying the nice way to go around it, and sometimes people will listen, and they'll go around and they'll try to, what they try to do is kind of in-round the conversation and trying to turn it back, and sometimes that works, and sometimes people will get the clue, and then it'll go back, and what they did was affirm Pastor Adam, that they love Pastor Adam, and things like that nature. However, some people will persist. Some people will persist. We had one gentleman who was constantly persisting, and so the next level, if I would have kept persisting, at some point they would probably have to say, look, I love you, but that needs to stop, because that's not okay. And they were going the gracious, but if I would have kept pushing, at some point, they're going to have to say, look, that's not okay.
And I only had to do that once in our small group, and that's not my personality at all. But I did it for the sake of the other people, because we were taking so many left trails that other people were like, wait, what's happening? Like, I'm not even following the discussion anymore because this person is completely just derailing on whatever and saying whatever. And so it's hard, but you can do it if needed.
All right. Let's just do another example. Let's just pretend that we are greeters outside under the tent. Okay?
Should we stand?
For the sake of spacing, let's keep it this way. Let's just pretend we're standing. All right? All right. Here we go.
So
we're all greeters.
All greeters.
We're all greeters. All right. Emily, I'm so glad that you're here. Come on, go ahead, greeters.
Hey, John.
Hey, John, how you
Good to
doing
see you.
today?
Top of the morning, y'all.
Good to see you.
Hey, have you guys been coming for a while? I think I recognize you. Hey. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're the pastor's wife. That makes sense.
Okay,
Hi,
guys.
Valerie, we haven't met before.
Man, it's just so cold out here. Gosh, I hate this weather.
Oh, I don't know. I kind of like the crisp fall. It's nice.
I really like serving. I just don't want to serve when it's cold. It's just, my bones are so thin. I'm just really
Jesus
bugs me.
served when it was cold.
What's that?
Jesus served when it was cold.
Well, Jesus was perfect.
This
Look,
is true.
Valerie, I just don't feel like you love me very much. I don't feel like
I love you to pieces, but
I've had a bad day.
right now.
I don't. Hey, 3 people just go by. I don't care because I'm focused on me. Let's focus on my bad week. You didn't even ask me how my week
you know
went.
what? You might want to re-listen to the pastor's message on pride.
Well, it's funny that the pastor's talking about pride because I could point out a couple times when he was prideful too.
Well, yeah. But 2 wrongs don't make a right.
You have to remember the Red Church motto, imperfect people serving a perfect God.
Yes.
All right. So, outside of Valerie's disobedience, you have to be able to make fun of yourself and have fun. So a couple things were there is that what ends up happening, this is really important. When you are serving, the primary purpose is not for you to connect with the team, it's for you to be serving the others. Now, it's important that we have conversations, we have good camaraderie, but if we are so caught up in our stuff, we are going to miss other people, and what they see is not, oh, I love that group, it's so close, that church is a close group. What they see is, that's a clique. This is not a welcoming place. They don't like me.
They're stuck up.
They're stuck up. See, that's the problem. When we get up and we just having our own conversations under the tent or outside, what they see is I'm not included. They don't want me. I'm not welcome. This is a cliquey church. So they kept highlighting and they're trying to kind of smooth things around and things of that nature. And sometimes it has to be confronted. And of course, I'm going over the top with exaggerations and things of that nature. But that's an important thing. Sometimes you have to have a conversation. If you're a leader, you may have to walk that person out and look, we need to chat. Or sometimes it's as simple as, I know it's cold, but you know what? That sun, isn't it great? It's a great, somehow reframe it. Reframing the situation is a partly of spiritual warfare, right? Because it's not based on circumstances. Life is not, our joy is not dependent on circumstances. right? We're called to choose joy in all circumstances. All right. I've already done, all of my stuff has been dominating personalities, so. How about this? How about somebody else? We'll do one more and do someone's offended. Anybody want to be the offended person? Sharon, why don't you be the offended person?
I can probably do that.
Okay. So let's give it a context. Are we in a, maybe not in a small group, maybe we're in a team huddle?
Okay.
Okay?
So you're the offensive person?
No, it's somebody else. Somebody else. She's offended by somebody.
Okay. And then is anybody going to be the small group huddle leader?
No, we'll just see who has the best idea.
Well, hey team. Glad you guys are here.
Good to see you today.
Yeah, thank you.
Sharon, are you okay? Because earlier, typically you're smiling. Today, I saw you kick a dog, so I know that things are not okay.
Yeah, I was gonna just tell you guys, Mary really hurt my feelings when I came in this morning. She didn't even wave at me, and I'm pretty sure that means she's like mad at me, which I didn't do anything. So,
Well, maybe
like,
she's not mad at you. Maybe she just has something on her mind.
well, I still think that she hurt my feelings. So
I understand
I don't
that.
know. It's
And
it's
I
gonna be
definitely
hard.
think you should talk to her about it.
Hey, Sharon, so I know you're upset, and I know that you've probably had a tough week. I know a little bit about that. I know Mary, and she used to be a pill. I'm just kidding. No, I know Mary, all right? And I know that there's a lot going on in Mary's life. So you've had a lot of stuff going on right now, and can I be honest with you? When you walked in, you didn't say hi to me, but I assumed that maybe you had a rough time. I know even myself, I have this focus face. When I'm thinking, I look angry. This is my thinking face. And people think I'm angry. And when I am out of time, I will move quickly. And because I move quickly and talk quickly, people might think that I'm upset. Do you think it's maybe that Mary isn't upset with you, or not that she just, maybe there might be something going on? Have you asked her if there's something going on?
I mean, no, she didn't look at me, so I didn't look back at her. You know what I'm saying? So it
Okay.
just,
But can you understand what I'm saying? Because you didn't wave and look at me when you came in.
well, I had a rough week, so
Do you
I
think
don't
that
know
maybe
about
Mary had a
Mary.
rough week?
I mean, I guess.
Okay. How about this? I love you. You're awesome. Mary's awesome. Can you go to her, and if there is an issue, try to work it out, and if you can't, let us know.
I guess I could do that.
Okay.
You got this, Sharon.
Thanks, team.
All right. So those are just some examples of highlighting. Obviously, Sharon's more agreeable than other people might be, but we're just totally improving this stuff, and everybody on here is a lot nicer than the average person. But the truth is that we've all been in this situation to some degree. Somebody's taken, and so these are just examples. I want you guys to make mental notes, because one day you might be up here giving the example of some crazy thing that went on in your group or your team huddle. All right.
Now that you have come to the end of this communications module, you'll have 2 homework assignments to be completed by next week.
For part 1, if you are preparing to be a dream team leader, you will be emailed a Right Now Media assignment with 2 short videos and a series of questions on best practices for an effective team huddle, both short and long. If you are preparing to be a small group leader, you will be emailed a Right Now Media assignment with a short video and a series of questions on best practices for effective small group facilitation. Please complete your assignment before the next module.
Part 2 of your homework assignment is to create your own communication guide for a short huddle. The next week, you'll break into groups of 2 to 3 to share it with your group.